So I'm not gonna get into it again. You know what this thing with the Siamese twin is. You know, Drawn to Life, brainchild of Jeremiah Slajka, 5th cell and published by THQ before they, went bankrupt. While the game didn't do amazing, it did just enough to warrant a sequel. And that sequel was Drawn to Life, The Next Chapter. It was announced alongside the Wii version on February 5th, 2008 by THQ CEO Brian Farrell, and it would be released on October 27th, 2009. Critically, it received similar scores to the first game, but most reviewers said it wasn't as good as its predecessor. But let's figure that out for ourselves. This was the game I grew up with, and at that I don't even remember beating it. So let's change that. Let's get into Drawn to Life, The Next Chapter. Oh, also, this video has spoilers for the first Drawn to Life, so I made a video about that. Go click that, watch that, come back here when you're done. Cool? Cool. Dude, that startup sound is so good, even to this day. This time around, instead of the Book of Life, we're greeted by a screen full of darkness. You're asked what you remember from that day, and it gives you a few questions to answer, and the answers you choose make up a prompt which you have to draw. This is then followed by some gibberish as it fades away. This is then followed by a really nicely animated cutscene, which shows Heather going on a picnic with Mary and Joey, but everything starts to lose color. It turns out to be a nightmare, but Heather goes to the beach and finds a weird chest with a scepter inside of it. The next morning, Heather's gone missing and everyone notices colors disappearing all over the village. So just like before, you give them a hero to fix it. Alright, I don't think I have to go too in-depth with this, because it's pretty similar to the previous game, so let's get Oh, wait, what? Oh, no, oh, what is happening? Oh, no. So the somehow alive Wilfer kidnapped Heather along with some of the other villagers and now has a new plan. Instead of covering the world in darkness, his plan is to remove all color from the world. Color starts fading from the village, but then the creator gives them a new place to go. A giant turtle with a full town on its back, which includes residence for the remaining villagers, a map room to get to other parts of the world, an item shop, and most importantly, a new Creation Hall. Creation Hall is a weird new mannequin inside of it, so they decide to use it to create a new hero. For real this time. So the drawing really hasn't changed that much from the first game to here. You can still use the touchscreen to draw, you still have all your colors, albeit a lot more. Guides make a return, but more on those later. But the biggest addition when creating the hero is the advent of limbs. You can give the hero more arms and legs, you can change the length and width of different body parts, but aside from that, it's just the same thing with a few extra bells and whistles. Once you finish recycling the same joke, Joey notices the pendant Heather left behind was starting to glow, and then he drops it, causing it to fall through the floorboards. Now it's up to you, the hero, to get it back. This first level, Forgotten Library, introduces you to the gameplay and mechanics of the next chapter. Compared to the first game, the controls felt way better. I don't know what it is, but something about this game's controls made me have more fun. Something about this game feels faster, like they took the chill pace of the first game and said, I can do you one better, and that's how this came into existence. I think it might be the new physics they implemented. You got a taste of it in the first few levels, where the breakable objects like these crates fly all over the place when you hit them. Later on, they give you access to one of the many canvases in the game. Just like before, you've got to draw something to help you progress, but now, they give most things you have to draw a guide you can fill in instead of having to draw each and every one. If you felt like the canvases from the first game messed with the pace too much, or you like the drawing but have no ideas, just use a guide and get right back into the action. Once you've gotten the pendant back, you meet Joey with the others in the map room. The pendant starts to glow and makes a mark on the map of where you need to go next. Since the pendant is supposedly leading them to her, it also means it's leading them to Wilfer. From here on, you have to follow the pendant where it leads to save Heather and stop Wilfer in whatever he's up to now. Just like in the first game, there are 4 worlds in total. You decide where you want to go via the map room by tapping one of the books. One thing I loved about the first game was definitely the world it took place in, and they really went all in this time. For one, say goodbye to the Mario 3 style level select and say hello to big, open hub worlds. I love how the next chapter handles the worlds. Instead of just being a theme for the player to look at and go, oh, that's neat, they made each world its own village with people living there and problems you have to solve and things that exist. Like I said before, there are 4 worlds altogether, and each feels so distinct. The first world is Water Song. It's your usual water level with the added theme of music and has a huge influence from the Victorian era. Next up is Lava Steam. It's your usual fire/lava world with a heavy industrial theme. Then there's the Democracy of the Republic of the People of the United Space Fortress, or the Dot Rot Pot Us Up, or the Galactic Jungle, or the Space Jungle. It's a space world with the jungle theme. And lastly, there's Wilfer's Wasteland, which is an amalgamation of all three worlds with Wilfer's Fortress waiting at the end. As said before, the main problem is Wilfer draining all the color from the world, but since you're God, you can fix that. When you enter a new world for the first time, you'll have to add color to the ground so you can move forward. There's not really much to this, you kinda just tap on the ground and a cutscene plays. Anyway, in the levels, you'll collect color droplets. If you have enough, you can tap on a building and scribble on it to restore color to the object. This is what will give you access to new levels, but sometimes when you color something in, you'll get a reward. Usually just coins or color drops though. I didn't really have a problem with these things. The levels give you just enough to get through the world. You'll never really have to grind for color droplets in past levels to get more. Hell, by the end of my playthrough for this video, I had more than enough to get by. Speaking of levels, let's talk about them. Each world has about 9 levels altogether, but you only really need to go through about half of them for the story. Most of the extra levels are pretty short in comparison to the main story level, but they all have the same goal. Get to the end where the big jar of color lies. That's right, no more pages. The Book of Life got all its pages back in the first game, so instead you'll be finding big jars of color, which give you more drops. Unlike the last game, the levels are more linear, but there's still a good amount to find. Coins, which are the currency, make a return. You can use them to buy and upgrade weapons, buy new guides for your hero, and listen to the game's soundtrack. In addition, there are of course the color droplets. There's also a new collectible, the Beard doubloons. There's one hidden in every stage, and the reward for finding all of them is just the last 3 music tracks. Huh. At least these are pretty cool. You've got the intro cutscene, so I can ogle over it more. Vocal tracks, but more on those later, are here too. There's also 3 Raposa in each world that you have to hunt down in some of the levels. These are optional, have no impact on the game. I'm sad! I really wish they gave the player more incentive to explore. The levels look great, and just getting to run through them is already a treat, but whenever I found what I needed, I would completely forget about exploring and go straight for the goal. And when I was actively looking for these things on my second playthrough, it felt like a chore. So I said, nope, there's no reason I should be going out of my way to look for these. But going back to the levels themselves, they were a lot better, especially with refined controls. And there's even more ways to get through the levels now. For starters, you can run, jump, slide, ground pound, etc., but now you have a few new moves up your sleeve. Firstly, the double jump. By pressing jump after you do a double jump. Simple as that. Notice how I said after you jump. Well, there was one change made to the jump in this game. Now if you jump while airborne, instead of doing a double jump, you'll do a normal jump. That means you can fall off a ledge and still have both jumps. You can even get your jumps back if you kill an enemy with a jump. Some might call this an oversight by the devs, but it saved my ass a few times, so I'm not complaining. Next up, remember this little bop thing from the first game? Well, now it actually does damage. In fact, now it's attached to the new attack button. By pressing Y, you can do the little bop thing, swing your sword, shoot your gun, throw your yo-yo. That's another new thing. Instead of having world or level specific upgrades, you have 4 weapons you can switch between on the fly with the L button. You can choose between using your bare fists, which gives you a good amount of forward momentum, the slasher, which acts like a less janky version of the legendary sword from the first game, the shooter, which acts like the snow shooter from the first game minus the needing ammo, and the slinger, which is just a yo-yo and was honestly pretty fun to use. Early on in Lava Steam, you get the first of 2 forms, the blob form. This lets you turn into, you guessed it, a blob. This lets you fit through tight spaces, but your speed and jump height are reduced. Then in the Galactic Jungle, you get the spider form, which, well, turns you into a spider. This lets you walk on walls and spit webs that you can swing with, but you can't double jump. Another new mechanic is the action drawing sections. These usually pop up in the middle to end of the levels. By interacting with these altars, it puts you in action drawing mode. This time around, instead of drawing something for the level, you're drawing directly on the level. There are 4 different colors you use throughout the game to create different platforms. There's black ink, which creates normal platforms, yellow ink, which creates platforms that move upward when you stand on them, blue ink, which does the opposite of yellow ink, and green ink, which creates bouncy platforms. On the side, it shows you how much ink you have, which determines how long a line can be. On the bottom, it shows you what colors you can use in that level, and next to each color is a number that shows you how many platforms you can make with it. There's also an undo button and a refresh button, which clears all your lines. I thought these segments were really cool. You have to solve a puzzle using the game's main selling point, while still combining it with the platforming. It's done in such a way where it feels right at home with the rest of the game, while still switching it up. Once again, at the end of each world story, there's a boss, and they're pretty hit or miss. In Water Song, they pit you up against Beard. Yeah, the guy with the stupid coins. I love how they did this fight. They set it up with Bakibeard just looking like some generic enemy, and then he comes back for revenge. One thing that was also really well done here was making use of something new the next chapter introduced. Just like the final boss in the first game, they give you a sort of pre-fight mini-level. You see, there are these ghost enemies that you can't hit with your weapons, but you can jump on them. The same idea is applied in the Bakibeard fight, and they use that pre-level to demonstrate it, and it was such a good idea that they only used once. I can't even remember the other ones, they felt too much like normal levels. I feel like something to prepare the player for the boss would have been a great use of this section, and it's such a good spot to introduce new mechanics or ideas. In Lava Steam, you take on the giant Ravosa, and my god, this fight went on for way longer than it had to. You just hit his hands a bunch, he gets mad, vores you, and then you have to destroy his eye or heart while getting shot at. This goes on for 3 phases. Then in the Galactic Jungle, you have to fight the King and Queen. This was a boss? Okay, I'll admit, first phase was pretty cool, but why is phase 2 so lame? I swear, the thought that this was the end of the fight never crossed my mind. It felt like it was building up to some big third phase. The final fight I'll save for later, but by far, it was the best. Overall, the levels were fun to go through, but they could have used a bit more. Just give the player more of a reason to explore. That was something great about the first game that the second game just didn't do as well. I enjoyed the drawing a lot more in this game. There's so many more options, but the lack of extra palettes didn't feel right. Like, you give us an eyedropper tool, but we can only use this handful of colors. This just feels like something that could have had more potential. But the new options, the pixel grid, the larger palette, it all just made for a better drawing experience all around. I've seen what people can do with this thing. I remember seeing a video that showed off Link and the Master Sword from Zelda and Ezio from Assassin's Creed, and this blew my mind. That was 9 years ago. What? There was apparently some online functionality where you could trade drawings with other players. I tried to get some footage of it, but... Once again, the characters and visuals do not disappoint in the slightest. This time around, instead of making the maps with a pre-made tile set, each of the overworlds were hand-drawn, and my god are they gorgeous. The character animations are adorable as ever, and the writing, while taking on a more serious tone, still had its moments and was really enjoyable. The new characters definitely had their charm too. Take Sock, who joins the hero Joey and Mary in Watersong. He tends to act kinda clueless, even running off a few times when you first meet him because he sees something cool. His design is really good too. I love the giant sock that he wears on his head and how his sleeves are too long for him. The music still hits hard. I like the more dramatic sound to the music, it fits the tone. The new drawing theme is really good, and I love the sound of Draw Your Hero. There are even some new vocal tracks. Near the end of Watersong's story, you hear the song Light of My Life, and it really is something. It's the whole reason I remembered the whole series. It's because of this song.
Fill this room one more time. Rehearse this line by line until I'm out of time.
The next chapter even has some remixes from the first game. For instance, Galactic Jungle 1 is a remix of Twilight Forest from the first game. And there's even a remix of Alt, an unused song from the first game. In the first game, you could buy it in the shop, and that was the only place you could listen to it. But in the next chapter, they used a remixed version called the Wappo song for the pre-fight Bakibeard level, and it makes me want to... Overall, I really enjoyed everything this game had to offer, but I feel like it lacked a lot of the charm the first game had. It just lacked a lot of those moments that genuinely gave me a big, stupid grin, whether it be intentional or something taken out of context. The next chapter had these moments too, of course, but it toned down the goofiness, which, to me, is what made the first game a more memorable experience. Though I will say I like the next chapter more. The more serious tone made for an interesting plot, the better controls made the game more fun, the updated graphics looked gorgeous, and god damn that soundtrack! Call it nostalgia, but despite its flaws, I love this game, and I think it sits as one of my favorites of all time. And now's the time where we get into spoiler territory. I'm going to be talking about the story in full, and there is a lot to go through. So if you want to play the game for yourself and remain unspoiled, please skip to here. You don't want to get spoiled on this. So with that in mind, let's go. Now after finishing Water Song, Mary disappears, but when you reach Lava Steam, you see her again, except she's running away from Joey, Sock, and the hero. After Lava Steam though, Mary returns, takes the Book of Life from Joey, and starts ripping out the pages. Wilfer had convinced her to help him. After beating the Galactic Jungle, Sock asks if he can have the pendant and leaves the room with it unnoticed. It turns out that Sock was actually Wilfer the whole time. He then gets away with the pendant and leaves behind Sock's hat. With no way to find Wilfer now, the crew thinks it's just best that they turn around and go back to what remains of the village. But that night, Joey has a dream that tells him Wilfer left behind something that will lead you to him. Sock's hat. And with that, it's time to set sail to the final world, Wilfer's Wasteland. Once you make it, Mary tries to explain to Joey and the others why she went with Wilfer. Since Joey was being very uncooperative, Wilfer takes him away, and now it's up to you to stop Wilfer and save Heather and Joey. Just like in the first game, at the end of some of the levels, you'll find a page from the Book of Life to create an altar for each of the worlds. And after you've found the page, you'll find that world's respective orb at the end. These levels are kind of like remixes of the original levels in their respective world, usually adding a new element to the level. Sometimes they'll be minor, like the changes in Water Song. There are these storm clouds that act as moving platforms but also shoot lightning, which also damages you if you're standing on top of one. But some of the changes are pretty major, like the discovery of water and lava steam, or how a giant wall of lava chases you. Once you create the pillars and place down the orbs, it's time to storm Wilfer's fortress. Unlike the first game, the fortress is 3 stages long with Wilfer waiting at the end. First act is Mystic Manor, where you'll try to get to the exit by doing nothing but guesswork. Once you walk through that first door, you're greeted by 3 other doors. You now have to guess which is the right way to go. This level was a bit frustrating at first, considering its random nature, but the best thing to do is keep calm and have patience, because if you know where to go, this level isn't really that long. Act 2 is Crumbling Keep. Here you'll be going around deactivating traps and seeing the only green switch in the game. It then closes out with one last lava chase. Honestly, I really enjoyed these levels. They really act as a true final test to the player, since you have access to your entire arsenal instead of just a few parts like in the first game. They were fun and got my blood pumping, although they were a little short. Final stage of the fortress is Hall of Darkness. Once you get through this, you'll be face to face with Wilfer. You start the fight, except there's something wrong. He's not taking any damage, and there's no health bar in the corner of the screen. Soon enough, Wilfer defeats the hero once and for all. It then cuts to all the Raposa you met around the world praying to the creator to not let Wilfer win, and suddenly the hero gains color again, and now the real fight has begun. This fight is by far the best in the game. No, best in the whole series so far. He has 3 main attacks. One where he shoots lightning from below him that travels across the ground on both sides, one where he swoops down, and one where he creates a tornado to pull you in. All of which give you a pretty good sized window to land a hit. But to deal damage, you have to hit Wilfer. Not the cloud, Wilfer himself. And the fact that his hurt box is so tiny makes you feel so uncertain if your attacks are gonna land or not. But that uncertainty felt great. It was exciting to actually land a hit on Wilfer and see that health bar go down because I knew I did it. Each hit I landed would bring me closer to defeating this asshole once and for all. This really felt like a final battle, and it felt great. After you defeat Wilfer once and for all and save Heather, you and the others return to the village and the Eternal Flame. Although everyone is uncertain of what will happen, you're ready to face the future head on. And with one final tap of the Eternal Flame, Mike wakes up. Wait, hold on, what the fuck? Okay, let me break it down here. So in the first game in the city level, you save a human boy named Mike. A human, not a Raposa. Turns out that Mike got into a horrible car accident that put him into a coma, and the whole series was his dream, and the Raposa were just stuffed animals that Mike and his sister had. So by tapping the Eternal Flame that final time, he finally woke up. That's why Wilfer was trying to drain the color from the world. I guess he was trying to kill the dream? If that makes any sense. He was trying to keep Mike from waking up because if he did, the world would end. Most people would regard this as one of the worst endings of all time, and I can see that. Doesn't mean I agree with them. The more I think about it, the more it makes sense. I mean, it all makes sense in the context of a video game or a story, but also in a dream. With Raposa's almost plushy-like appearance and the fact that Mike just sort of popped out of nowhere, I feel like more people would be fine with this ending if we got to explore Mike as a character more than just the surface level stuff we're given. But then again, who am I to say that this was the developer's intended vision? I should add that in later prints of the game, the ending was modified. In this version, Mike and his family go on a camping trip, he falls like 2 feet while climbing a tree and passes out for like 5 seconds. Instead of trying to fulfill someone's vision, it feels like they're more trying to fit an age rating, and it's boring. Fun fact, you can actually tell which ending you have by looking at the back of the cartridge. If it has something that looks like this, it's the original ending. Well, if it says this, that's the modified version. Keep in mind that these specific numbers only work with North American copies of the game. This also works with copies from other regions, but the digits will be different. Also, if you have the Drawn to Life collection, which is both the first game and the next chapter, you'll have the modified ending. So that was Drawn to Life the next chapter, and it was a pretty great experience. Of course, the issues I mentioned before, but if you look past those, you have a great game that saw what the predecessor did and built off that, while crafting a whole new experience and keeping the charm that the series is known for. Am I being nostalgic? Maybe, but don't let that stop you from giving it a chance. Again, if you want to pick up the game, there's of course the two E's, eBay and emulation. Take your pick. But with that being said, we still have more to cover, so tune in soon when we cover something else. I could have sworn I'm forgetting something. Oh well. I've been Rove, and I'll see you next time. Peace. Hi, okay, I'm going to be talking here now. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you want to share your thoughts, please drop a comment. And if you like the video and want to see more, please hit subscribe. I really appreciate it. Over here you got my Twitter if you want to keep up with me. And down here you got my Twitch, Rove, right there. We stream sometimes, we have fun. Anyway, I hope you all have a nice day.